Hey, what's going on guys? It's John here from Spirit Longboarding, and today I'm going to show you how to repaint your longboard. By watching this video, I hope I can teach you some techniques as to how to spray your board, and maybe give you some ideas as to a graphic for your own boards. Or simply you could just follow this tutorial and try to copy the graphic on my board. It's totally up to you. Okay, the very first thing you've got to do is to disassemble your entire board. We have two videos already that show you how to do this. One is how to fix your squeaky trucks video, and the other one is the drop-through assembly video. Whilst your board is disassembled, this is a good opportunity to clean all of your parts, so your trucks, your hanger, and give your bearings a good clean. Also, removing the grip tape would be a good idea here, but I wanted to keep this grip tape on the board since it was relatively new, and it was still a pretty good piece of grip tape, so I might as well keep it. Okay, the next step is to take a razor edge chisel, or any chisel you've got lying around, and try to remove the stickers. Now be very careful whilst you're doing this. As you can see in the video, I cut my finger whilst doing this, so be very careful to keep your other hand away from the blade of the chisel here. Once you've removed all the stickers, it's probably a good idea to remove all of the residue with the chisel and finish it off with a bit of low grit sandpaper. Anything under 100 will do. Once you've thrown away all the rubbish, now it's time to sand. Now, to get most of the old graphic off the board, I suggest using an orbital sander. This will help get the majority of the old graphic off the board, and will also help you get a lot of the blemishes off the bottom of the deck that you usually get from a stone hitting the underside or making indentation in the board. An orbital sander should sand that right out of your board. You should finish this sanding by hand. Get something around 100 grit sandpaper and just get it sanded down and smooth, ready for the first coat of paint. Remember to sand your rails if necessary. I did it here since they're a little bit banged up, a bit of the corners were smashed up. Also take this opportunity to try and fix any razor tail if you have any. Just sand down the edges a little bit and you'll have a nice new kick. Also, you should take this opportunity to clean your truck mount areas. I used a chisel, sandpaper and a needle file to do this. This isn't 100% necessary, but this is probably a good idea to remove any doubt of the paint sticking to your deck when you apply the first coat. Any sticky residue or anything left over may interact with how the paint sticks with your board, so it's best to try and remove that while you can. Now the next step is to start painting your board. Some people advise you use a light coat of clear as your first coat that acts as sort of a primer. I didn't do that with this board, but you can do that if you wish. The first thing I do here is tape the board up, tape up all the areas that I'm not going to paint the first layer on. And now I move on to spray. Now remember to shake the can for at least 30 seconds to a minute before you start spraying. Remember to use light coats and light passes across the board. Do not use heavy coats or heavy passes across the board, because this will mean the paint takes longer to dry and you may get a worse finish than if you do a lot of light coats. A lot of light coats is always better than one heavy coat. Whilst you're spraying, always remember to leave a 30cm gap between the spray can and your board. Remember to wear a mask and an apron, and use an extractor if possible. I'm using an extractor here. It's a really good idea to stop that paint smell sort of lingering in the air. Once you've finished your first coat, do not touch the paint. The paint will need at least 20 minutes to dry. Check the instructions on your spray can if you're not sure, but I would give it at least 20 minutes to dry properly. To test whether it's dry, you can just touch an inconspicuous area. It should be touch dry within about 15 minutes, and probably fully dry and ready to paint over in about 20 to 25 minutes. Now I did 2 coats of white here. You can do more if necessary, but make sure you keep those coats light and not heavy. Okay, after that coat of white, I started off with my stencils. Now, to do a stencil, just find an image you like or draw your own. So you can print or draw out the stencil you like, then cut it out using an x-acto knife. Now, I did a lion and the Spirit Longboarding logo here. And also at this point, I found the centerline of the board, drew a diagonal line as to where the red and white sections of the board were going to be. Then I taped it up, once again ready for the red coat. Once it was taped up, I sprayed the first coat of red, exactly the same as before. And then I did some practice with the Spirit logo. This is a pretty good idea if you think you're going to have some trouble with some trickier parts of the graphic. It might be a good idea to practice them on a bit of cardboard or a bit of spare wood you've got lying around, to make sure you don't mess it up on your actual board. I also suggest to hold down these stencils rather than using your hands and having to spend ages washing them. Find something like the needlepoint file you used earlier, or maybe a pen, or even some nuts and bolts you have lying around. You want to make sure the stencil is flush on the board. If it's not flush and touching the board at all areas, you'll get sort of a fuzzy outline once you've taken the stencil off. You may want this effect. I had a little bit of that effect here and it did look quite nice, but if you want a really clean, nice line, then you're probably going to want to use something like spray adhesive to keep the stencil on the deck. Once I spray this black layer, I let it dry for 20 minutes, then carefully remove the stencil, place the other stencil, the white stencil, on top of it, and sprayed over that in white. Be careful when you're removing these stencils. Make sure you leave ample dry time whenever you use a stencil. I'd probably give it about half an hour. The reason for this is sometimes even if the paint is touch dry, it may still be sticking to your stencil a bit, so you want to be very slow and careful when you lift it up to make sure you don't lift any of the paint on the board up with it. And here's when I did the splatter effect. Now this is a very easy thing to do. Get a piece of cardboard, put the spray can very close to it and just do short bursts on the spray can so the paint is quite wet on the card. Then use the card and flick it towards your board. This will give you a really nice splatter effect on your board. It's really good because it's unique every single time. Every single time you do it, it will be different. You'll get large spots and small spots in different places. So just keep doing this until you're happy with the finish. So now I've done that half of the board, I'm now going to do the other half. And it's exactly the same procedure as before. Make sure you cover your entire non-spraying area to avoid getting any paint going onto areas you don't like. And do the exact same process as before. Now this time I used some nuts to hold the stencils down whilst I was spraying. This made the finish come out a little better. So I think this is quite a good idea. Just if you've got any spare nuts lying around, just place them on the stencil. It helps to hold it down and it helps to keep your stencil lines really clean. So for this half of the board, I did the black stencil first, then the red stencil, then the red splatter, making sure I leave 20 to 25 minutes in between each coat to make sure it's dry. Now that's dry, I now taped up both ends of the board and left the centre piece clean so I could do a black stripe. In the centre of this black centre line, I was going to put the Spirit logo. So exactly the same as before, tape up or cover up everything else other than the area you're working on. And here I did the black stencil first, then the red, then the white. Then I removed all of the tape on the board, covered up the logo, and did a black splatter across the centre of the board. Now that everything's dry, it's time to clear coat. Now keep these coats really light, same spray method as before. I would do at least 2 layers to keep your graphic protected. Make sure you get every single area of the deck. Since the deck was completely sanded down earlier, the deck will need this clear coat to keep water, dirt and other external material out of the board and keep your board protected. So make sure you get this clear coat on every area of your board. On your graphic, around the rails, on a drop through deck, you want it in the truck mounting area. Just make sure you've got clear coat in every area. Once you've done all your coats are clear and they're all dry, reassemble your board and then you're done. So I hope this video has given you some good ideas about a graphic to do for your own board. I think this graphic came out really well. It's a lot better than the old graphic I used to have on this board. For those of you who are wondering, this deck came blank. I bought some paint pens and just messed around on the board really and slapped some stickers over the top, and it was a really nasty looking finish. I think this new graphic looks really professional and it's way better than the old job I used to have on it. So yeah, if you want to give your longboard a new lease of life, then this is a great way to do it. Thank you very much for watching, guys. Please leave any questions you have down in the comments. And if you decide to do one of these projects on your board, please head over to our Facebook and send us a picture. We'd love to see them. Like this video, subscribe to Spirit Longboarding, and buy the t-shirt. Thank you very much for watching, guys. My name's been John Nichols, and I'll see you next time.